welcome to episode 3 of Games Every Designer Should Play, a podcast that explores what aspiring and seasoned designers can learn from some of the greatest games of all time. I'm Stuart Lilford, lecturer in game design, and I'm joined as usual by...
Adrian Mills. I'm another lecturer in game design.
You are?
Hello, it's David, another lecturer in game design.
We are 3 lecturers in game design, and in each episode we'll be discussing one essential game and what we can learn from it. At the end of the episode, one of us will reveal to the others the game we must play for the next episode. Will it be beloved by all, or could it be controversial? You'll have to listen to the end to find out. It's my turn to choose today, so we'll see what I suggest at the end of the episode, and I thought this would be easier than it turned out to be.
He's been stressing.
It is, I am stressing. But for this episode, the game we'll be discussing is Inscryption. Yes, Inscryption. And fair warning, this podcast will absolutely contain spoilers for the game, and you will probably get way more out of listening if you've played. So if you haven't played Inscryption, why not pause the episode now and go and play it? We'll be talking about the game, assuming that you have. And now, as we've established, if it's your suggestion, you have to provide some background on the game. And David, I would love to hear you attempt to explain this game, because from... what I experienced, it's absolutely bananas.
It's going to be a bit interesting, yeah. So just again, spoilers, heavy spoilers for this. It's one of those kind of games where your friends will say, I'm not going to tell you anything about it, just go and play it. I'm going to say that again, just go and play it. There's a lot of stuff in it where you're going to get little twists and interesting parts going on, so go play it before we start. So this could potentially be a controversial episode. We'll see. We had some interesting happenings in this. So Inscryption is a game made by creator Daniel Mullins. So he's best known for the 2 games of Pony Island and The Hex. Those are... There's a slight relation to them that I might talk about later. So Inscryption is a roguelike deck building game. It was fairly well received on launch in 2021. It sold about 1 million copies over 4 months from October to January, and it won several Game of the Year awards when it came out. So it originally came from a game jam at Ludum Dare, the 43rd game
David,
jam.
I think it's pronounced Ludum Dare.
Ludum Dare, sorry. And it was originally created as a game called Sacrifices Must Be Made. I don't know if you guys had a look at that or not.
I did not.
Okay.
I saw it mentioned in a game theory video, which I watched after playing Inscryption.
So, I briefly played it because it's very short. It only took me about maybe 20 minutes to go through it. It's very similar to Inscryption itself. It basically starts where you're in a cabin in the woods, starving. You're playing against this mysterious figure in this like dark cabin, and you're starving and you have to beat him to be fed. By the end of the game, when you beat him, you basically get a choice whether your dinner is hungry man or hungry child. There's a hungry child behind you. You are the hungry man. You have to choose which person must be sacrificed to get your food, and that's where the game kind of ends.
Right.
Inscryption.
Why don't you eat the person you're playing against?
Huh?
Just
because he's the one that's going to feed you. You know?
Eat the creepy guy.
Eat the
creepy guy. Because you're probably starved and weak. Anyway, on a surface level, Inscryption is pretty much the same, where you kind of start off in that same cabin, where you face off against this creepy man called Leshy in his cabin. Except you have the addition of being able to move away from the tabletop where you're playing this card game. And there are lots of sort of interactable puzzle elements within the environment.
It's almost like an escape room.
Yeah,
that you're inside.
It's very similar.
While playing this game.
Yeah, if you've played any sort of digital escape rooms as well, it is quite similar to that. When you die or sort of lose in the card game, you are turned into a card, and you repeat the process until you beat this Leshy. As you get further into the game, it sort of delves deeper, and you eventually get a lot of sort of fourth wall breaks. One example is when you beat Leshy, you are kind of traversing this board where you're playing the card game, and once you get to the end, you actually enter the cabin on the board game, and you're kind of playing against Leshy in that sense, where you kind of it's fourth wall breaky, where you go into the game while you're playing the game, sort of thing. If I've explained that okay. And then from that point, there's a lot of sort of ARG elements, so alternate reality game elements, where it's kind of breaking the fourth wall. There's lots of elements where this game isn't actually just a game sort of thing. It's like a real thing. So you're kind of immersed in this game that isn't just a game. It's a real thing that's supposed to have happened somewhere else out in the world. So all of these elements kind of have you questioning what's going on. And then from that point, you kind of, I'll kind of open up a little bit. You get all these different questions, but the real question is, what can we learn from it as designers?
Yeah. I'm really interested to hear what Adrian thought of the game, just for a bit of a context. Obviously, we chat about the game we're playing as we're, as we're playing through them. We kind of discuss how we're doing and stuff. I'll jump in and say I really enjoyed Inscryption, the experience. But Adrian, what was your experience like?
The first part of the game, how was that?
I found okay.
Here we go.
No, I'll keep it.
No, just be honest.
I'll be honest. I found the first part of the game very frustrating. So the problem with the first part of the game is that although the actual concept, as you've outlined there, sounds very cool as you go through and you beat this final guy, and then he sort of expands out into these other kind of different games, because essentially there's two more games beyond the opening section.
There's 3 acts.
You start the game at the end of the game, if that makes sense.
But
kind of.
But then you unlock the new game. Sorry, go on.
But the problem is that you have to. So the first act has you going through 3 sections of this map, or 4, I suppose, if you count the end bit. So you've got the woodlands, you've got the fishy wetlands, and you've got the peaks, the snowy peaks, and then there's the cabin at the end. And each one has a boss. So there's the trapper at the end of the first one, the angler at the end of the second one. The trapper comes back because he obviously couldn't think of another character at the end of the third one.
No, it's the prospector in the first one.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's the trapper turns up. No, the trapper's on the board, isn't it?
Yes.
I get those 2.
He is another character.
They just seem very similar. And then there's the Leshy at the end. So you get those 3. And if you lose, because it's a roguelike, you're back at the beginning. Okay, now you can go through, like you said, opening up different cards and stuff by solving some of the little puzzles that are in the cabin. There's not many of them, but there's enough, and you kind of can work them out. Some of them are really obscure. But like I did not figure out the cards in the case one.
To unlock the cases.
The cards in the case. There's like as you stand up, because the controls turned out. You basically, if you walk straight to your right, there's a case on the wall. And there's like 2 cards in that. So you have to mirror them in your hand, and then that opens up. I didn't figure that out.
That one. Yeah.
So that one, I got everything else. So I did everything else. Now the issue I had was that because of the RNG behind it, because of the random numbers that are going in this roguelike, I just was running up to certain bosses and then just getting killed. And then getting thrown straight back to the beginning, and everything I'd built had gone. So I'd start again, and so I kept getting to Leshy. So I got to a point where I could get to Leshy, and then he just one-shot me.
Right, yeah.
And every run to get there, because you've got to go through all those maps, and every map is quite long in and of itself, and getting there, it's like half an hour to get to Leshy. So I was losing half an hour of time. And I don't like games that are very, very...
That's fair.
Like, wasteful of my time. I didn't feel like I was progressing because I wasn't in control of the things I was getting that I needed to beat him. And when I finally did beat him, I mean, and I've sort of listened to other bits, and they're saying, the game gives you stuff to cheese it and get round stuff and everything here. The way I finally beat him was just getting the squirrel, when the squirrels died, the thing from the woman who's in the thing, you get totems. So I had every time something died on the board, I got an ant. I got the worker ants. So I could get a squirrel on, kill the squirrel, get an ant, put an ant on. That ant would then beget another, put another squirrel on, and eventually, and the ants rack up. So if you have 2 ants, they get 2 power, 3 power, 4 power. So I could rack those ants up across my board and just have 4/4. And then every time one of them got killed, I had another ant, put it on.
Yeah.
So that was how I managed to just cheese my way through it when I finally did it. And I don't feel I actually did it skillfully because it was just random. I absolutely got that completely randomly. And I spent 14 hours getting through this first section.
That's dedication.
That is dedication.
And there was a bit, and you guys will test sort of thing, whereas we were messaging each other, and I was like, I'm done.
You were down to
we weren't sure.
I was like done.
We weren't sure what was going to happen.
But I was like, I'm gonna keep. I owe it to this thing to sort of see this damn thing through. And eventually I beat him. And then the next 2 scenes are completely. I thought just. When it obviously then it jumps to that FMV stuff, but I just thought they were a bit, I don't know, they were a bit anticlimactic after that, and I think I don't know if that front end is so loaded in such a way because that back end is, it goes off in a different direction, but it's almost like that front end is just such a wall, it's such a block. And I don't know if that's a good. We said every designer should play them, whether it's good or bad. I don't know. I don't know if that roguelike element to that first section is the right choice.
Yeah. It might come back to what you were saying about that essentially being the end of the game, really, because one of the things that I took from this is that sense of mystery that kind of permeates through the entire game. So it does little things that are just kind of different and I've never seen before from the very front end. So you open the game up and the option to start a new game is greyed out. You can't select it, so you press continue. So that's kind of already kind of laying groundwork for the sense of mystery that kind of is there throughout the game. And then there's little things like the cards talking to you and all that kind of thing, and there's loads of that, which I think it did really well. And
I agree with all of that. I think those elements are excellent.
I it's just the card game aspect.
It's the game part.
Well, just the thing that. Right, so the main thing that I feel like you can learn from this is emergent gameplay and how it how you can essentially create systems or design systems that allow players to generate their own kind of gameplay experience. So your example of the way you beat the end boss was totally different for me. So for me, when you obviously you've mentioned when you die you get to create your own card essentially based on the stats of cards that you had in your pack, and it gives you kind of 3 random ones and you get to choose. So I think I ended up creating 4 in total. I created Stuart, David and Adrian. I'm sorry to say, but Adrian was my worst card.
I'm not going to go into the number of deck cards I played, nor what they were named, because they're representative of my anger at this point and my frustration, and they're not words that you can use on a family.
More vulgar.
They're not words you can use on a family podcast.
But my David card ended up being the thing that kind of won me the game, because essentially I was able to choose. You're able to choose a cost, stats, and you can choose an ability basically from cards that you had in your deck on that run that you just died in. And so it was like, okay, choose a cost from these 3 cards, and one of them was a Gek, and a Gek is 0 cost. It's got crap stats, but it's 0 cost. So I was like, right, well, I'll have a 0 cost card, please. And then it goes, right, choose stats from these cards, and it's like the Bloodhound or the Bear with these like crazy stats. I was like, I'll have one of those. And then it's like, okay, choose an ability, and then it was the one where you can, when you sacrifice it, it just keeps being on the board, so you can sacrifice it multiple times. And so I had that with this David card, and then I upgraded it. You can also upgrade your cards during that run. So I ended up with this card where also when it attacks anything, the thing it attacks dies immediately. So I had this stupidly OP card, but also alongside that, you can you have the opportunity to merge two of the same card together. The what is it called? The mycologist or something? The guy with two heads. If you've got two of the same card, you can basically merge their stats. And I had a bloodhound, I think, that I merged. So it's like, I think that's like two cost, but it had like really good stats. And then you can also, there's an achievement for merging a merged card with another of the similar. So I had this merged bloodhound, and then I did it again. So in the final boss fight, I had my David card, and I had this really crazy high statted bloodhound card. But like, one of the things it does is when you're fighting Leshies, it throws the moon at you.
Yeah.
It's like, right, wipe the board, and I put the moon on. I basically one-shotted the moon because I had the David card, which whatever creature it attacks dies immediately. So it had 100 HP. It was gone like that. And so the end boss, I did in one go. That was it took me a few goes to get there, but when I did get to it, and also the thing you mentioned with the totems as well, like you had with the ants. So mine was that the squirrels basically reduce the attack of all opposing creatures that are opposite by 1, and there was points where they were putting creatures on the board with 1 attack power, which basically means that if you put a squirrel in front of it, it has 0 attack. So on its turn, it does nothing on that lane. And if you put that in as many lanes as possible, so you've only got really 1 to contend with, or at one game I just filled it with squirrels, and I just kept drawing cards from my deck, ending my turn, nothing would happen. So I could just get the cards that I wanted, so that then eventually I could just sacrifice these, lay these down to bish bash bosh, and then just do it that way. And so, but that, I felt like playing it, I designed this deck to do all that, and I designed these cards that way. And so the game didn't put these cards in my hand. It gave me the systems in order to create these that were part of my deck that allowed me to kind of beat the game, beat that first act.
Well, I had the merge one. I had a merged grizzly. So 8-12.
Yeah.
So it's 8-12. So we need to explain this sort of thing. You have, like I said, you have power, health, and ability, and so your power is how much damage you do to opposing cards. That power then travels up the lane as well, because it can hit the ones at the back of it, and things like that. And you've got your health, so when you take damage, that's how long that cards can survive. It's basic card game rules, I guess. But when I run it, and I got that grizzly, I'm not going to say what the name of this card was, but like I said, because at this point I was getting quite angry. But I got this card out at the last boss, played it in the first thing, and then the trapper turned up and turned it into gold.
Yeah.
I
can see that would be really frustrating.
And then basically I beat the first stage of Leshy. And I'll come to the next part as well. I beat the first stage, then he laid a load of things down. He laid your death cards down, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So he laid that and just one-shotted me.
You fight against your own death cards at one point.
Right, yeah.
In the second phase. So then he just one-shotted me. He just went dun-dun-dun-dun. And I was like, just watch you go down, dead. Because the scales, I was like... I think that's when I messaged you that I'm done.
I'm done with this.
This was like hour 10.
That sounds fair.
Hour 10, hour 11, and this is what I got at. This is what I was getting. I wasn't able to work my way around it because I just wasn't getting those breaks that you were getting. Because at the end, when I was getting the random cards, I would get I got a couple that were worth nothing, but then the next one would be like power 1s and 2s. It was like,
you need to pray harder to RNG.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Yeah, so it wasn't a case of and. Even the lucky bits where you get the boons in before the last fight, it's like you got to have 3. You got to have something that's got one of these. It's like, well, it's all random.
Yeah,
there's no skill here. And I get that's the notion of a roguelike, but my point was that it got to a point where I was really not enjoying those first 3 phases.
Yeah, I must admit, some of the bosses, like the angler, when he just puts the chum buckets down,
you kind of ended up dreading like getting to those.
And he was like, he puts the chum buckets down, and if you attack one, it turns into a shark, which has stupid stats
and sinks,
and sinks at the end of each turn. So you can't damage it unless you've got a card that if it's attacked causes damage to. So you've basically got to to have enough power to attack.
Yes.
In one shot, otherwise anything
for
that's there is immediately killed by the shark, which is high stats.
Yeah.
I still can't remember how I even did that. But I think my strategy was don't attack the buckets. Because you can get cards where they don't attack the creatures in front of them directly, they attack the opponent and take the point. So if you just put them in front of the chum buckets, you don't have to worry about the sharks. And then you'll easily win.
But only if you get those cards out.
Yeah, you've got it's remembering all these little phases. It's like, okay, anything that I put in the first phase with the prospector is going to get turned into gold.
But the other thing that I'm open to hear your reasons for why you think this may be a good idea.
Okay.
One life in the boss battles.
Yeah.
So you have 2 lives. So as you go through the game, basically there's these candles next to the board.
Actually, I want to talk about that.
And the candles are your lives. Okay. So if you lose a fight going through, you lose a life. Okay, so you lose one of the candles, gets blown out. When you beat one of the bosses, it gets reignited. If you get to the boss with 2 lives left, which I usually did, because I could get to that point, I think it then go, it would extinguish one. And so you'd have to beat 2 phases of the boss with only 1 life, and if you died, if you lost, even you didn't get another chance, you were done. You were back to the beginning because of the roguelike nature. And you get to Leshy, as you said, he's got 3 phases. Now, obviously, I once I beat him with the 4 ants on the screen, I couldn't lose.
Yes.
Because no matter what the moon did, he wasn't doing enough. He couldn't hit many of my. He was just killing my ants, but I had another ant to put on. So he was never hitting the empty squares to do damage. And it was just a case of just waiting for the ants to kill it. It was like, come on, okay, at this point. And then I did it. I was like, hey. Oh, thank God for that. And so that was that point. So I'm willing to listen to. I don't think reducing your power in a boss fight is a good thing.
It certainly raises the stakes.
But if you can explain to me why you think it's in the context of this, a roguelike, which sends you back to the very beginning, having played for 25-30 minutes.
So the only thing I've got in response to that is that it's maybe a way to encourage, because you also get, as part of each run, 3 items that can help you during the game. They're like, you can break a bottle and get a free squirrel, or you can there's other things that you can get.
We'll go through some of those bits, I think, because they have nice animations with them.
But I wonder if, because playing through normally, I kept forgetting to use them, or forgetting that they were even there. But whereas if you're in a boss fight and he extinguishes one of the candles, then plucking an eyeball out to put on the scales to help me out here might seem like a good idea in those moments. So it might be that's the only thing I can really think of.
It sort of feels like that extra artificial difficulty in a way, like just to sort of force you to use your resources and kind of higher stakes battle. But yeah, I'm kind of on the same wavelength as you on there, maybe.
It was difficult. That first act was difficult, which I think is bizarre, because it's like the hardest part of the game is usually the later stages, whereas with this game, the first act is the most difficult, I would say.
It's by far.
And then it becomes, and the roguelike elements disappear completely.
Yeah.
And then it's all about deck building and.
Well, the last section becomes a Souls-like.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Because you're moving through a map, and then when you die, your gold gets left at the point thing, and you have to fight your way back there to get gold.
But you still keep all your same cards, all your same deck is designed the way it was, all your upgrades are still there. It doesn't remove everything it does in the first act.
It stops becoming a roguelike and is more of like a pure deck builder type of thing at that point, I would say.
Yeah, but with those souls, with the souls, because you've got a mapped. It's like like in Dark Souls, you move through Dark Souls, you fight enemies. If you die, then your souls are at that point, and you've got to fight your way back where everything's alive again. Then you get to a bonfire, and then you don't have to worry about it. But this is, you get to those, what are those terminal buildings, those branch bits, and then it would go, everything's shut back. But you fight there, but you get your gold if you make it back there, so you can pick up your. If you don't get back there, you lose that. You lose it, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, but what I did feel like But obviously, after I didn't look anything up. I think I managed to solve like a lot of the puzzles in that first act on my own. I don't think I used any hints or anything. But finishing that first act, and then you have these videos, and then suddenly it turns into a like NES looking RPG type thing. I was just like, what? What is going on?
Yeah.
I think I put the game down and didn't play it for like a week and a half after that, because I was like, it felt like that beating Leshy felt like the climax to the game.
That's the thing, because like in the context of the game, like lore wise or whatever you want to call it, like the beginning part of the game is the end of the game, because the whole thing is like you start in this like top-down pixel art style type of thing where you've got these 4 main areas. They're all inspired by loads of other different card games. So you've basically got Yu-Gi-Oh, you've got Magic the Gathering, and you've got Hearthstone, and then one of them is just kind of like a graveyard inspired one. I don't know if that's just because card games have graveyards most of the time.
Maybe.
I don't know. But yeah, you're basically supposed to beat those different areas, and then you get to choose one of the 4 main bosses, the scribes, to challenge, and then it goes into this first person view where you have the sort of card game in front of you, which is where you start in the beginning of Inscryption. You have like the Leshy introduction. That is the end of the game in the context of Inscryption. So it makes sense lore wise, but gameplay wise maybe it's not a strong choice.
What I will say, and I think this is something that maybe again something we can take from this game, is that I felt like it managed to maintain the feeling of freshness. But obviously that first act.
Well, I was thankful that the second and third acts weren't.
But like,
and it went and did something different.
Yeah, exactly. You got over that first, and it was the same. It's the same mechanics, obviously. Basically, it's the same. 4 lanes. You draw cards, and it's
5 in the last section.
There is, but it's the same. It's the same. You know how to play it. But it's just. Now it's not a roguelike anymore. You open packs and you can build your own deck however you want. And there's a couple of different card mechanics that we're throwing in there. And I was like, right, okay. And then you get your head around that, and then you beat Act 2. And then it's like, right, well, now you're just using these types of cards initially. In fact, exclusively like the robot type cards for this last bit. Also, the way the map it's like it goes to like a Souls like you say, but it still felt like it meant it was fresh. It's the same gameplay, but it still felt fresh, and it found ways to do that. And I think that's something that I think any like designer can take from this game.
I think they did that pretty well, in the sense that you're going through this game and you get fairly comfortable with a lot of the mechanics, and then just as you're getting comfortable with it, it starts to bring in like these slightly new aspects that bring a twist to it, and you have to kind of learn how to deal with them. And then you've got the sort of change in environment and all of that kind of stuff, and it does kind of keep it fresh without making it too complicated, because there's a lot of card games that, like Magic the Gathering for example, they have so many different mechanics that it takes you so long to kind of learn how to be good at the game. But this one kind of it's almost harder
you to one at a time.
Almost. It's almost harder at the beginning, and it kind of trains you up, and then it like introduces these new mechanics,
which I have to say I completely ignored.
The new mechanics.
Most of them. I just got some cards and played it exactly like I played the first. So I never engaged with the gems. The moxies. All this kind of weird stuff.
I did a little bit, I would say, but the electric ones where you've got to line them up and then they get buffs if you complete a circuit.
I think I did one of them by accident.
Because it's all of these different areas have different themes. So I think the one that you start in with Leshy, the cabins, the woods, that's like the beasts or whatever, where you have blood sacrifices. You have the graveyard, which uses bone. So when enemies die,
when your cards die.
When your cards die, you get sort of bone tokens, which you spend to kind of re-summon stuff. You've got the.
But again, that was something that was in the main game.
That he introduces that Leshy.
The bones
that felt
section,
familiar.
Things like the vulture. things. There's quite a few.
Yeah. So it kind of still links to it, but it's like more heavy. You can build into that direction. You've got the Magic the Gathering one, which uses
the weird gem.
Basically the gems, the Mox stuff, which is
I've
like.
never played Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about it, but Mox is like that's a specific card in Magic. But yeah, you basically have lands which give you different colours, and you kind of.
Well, I just got who's the guy you I think in the third section, who's the guy you rescue, the little sort of nameless guy who pops up and is always talking to you in the third section.
The slime.
No, he's not the slime. It's the other one. He's like the hidden guy, the one who's like no one. You free him, and he's like, I've been in here for ages. I got him in the third section.
Oh, is he like a? He's like a wizard.
Yeah.
The wizard.
Guy, yeah. So I trained him up, and I think I buffed him up.
Yeah.
So he split. He did a double split. So he hit both sides for 4 power and had 4 health. As soon as he popped out, I was just like, play him.
I had
8 damage, game over.
I think when I beat the first part, sorry, go on.
That was it. And that was
when I beat the first part of the game, I think I ended up with like the Mantis God card.
Yeah.
That has like it attacks in 3 directions. I gave it poison.
Okay.
And I think I also it might have attacked twice or something. Was that? I'm not sure if there's an ability to attack twice, but yeah, it was basically it would just wipe.
Yeah.
Everything on the board.
I think there's the ability to, if you're attacked, attack back.
Yeah.
Or you do damage back.
Yeah, I think it might have been that. And then I also gave it extra health and damage, so it kind of you can really make your stuff quite overpowered, or you can kind of play into the different themes. And
it's just and I had loads of overpowered cards. I had loads of them. It was just like you play the Prospector and gold.
Yeah.
Or you get to Leshy and you turn up at gold, or your chum buckets would turn up. And
or the guy with the hook would be like, "The hook, mine."
Yeah. You have to keep a squirrel handy, sort of thing, or something worth it. You'll put that down last.
Yeah. I don't know if there's like an easy way to balance the game or something where it's like they know you can make these really overpowered cards, so they're just like, we're going to put these and that'll just destroy your cards. I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think my frustration just came with so much of it. I was front loaded in this game so much that first section just left a sour taste in my mouth, and I think, and then and just to sort of, and just something else to sort of discuss around this game as well is the sort of use of the multimedia aspect.
So I wanted to talk about the subverting expectations side of this game, and just the element of the use of surprise. I've continually playing this felt like, wow, this is something that I haven't seen before, or something that surprised me. Like the boss where you play it and it's like, oh, are these your friends? And suddenly the enemy cards are like
You're
people from your Steam
friends,
your Steam list, or the one where you've got to delete a file from you choose a file from your hard drive, and if you lose that game it's going to delete the file from it, and those kinds of fourth wall breaking things that I thought were really interesting.
I didn't trust it at that part. I think a really random JPEG or something. I don't need that image.
Well, apparently
after what you named all those cards at the beginning, you were like, maybe he's getting revenge now.
Apparently it doesn't delete it.
I would imagine it can't.
But it puts a text file in there that says something like, in the spirit of the game, please delete this file, and then it says the file name. And I think if you do actually delete it, it gives you an achievement for it at least.
Okay.
But just that element of surprise and just constantly kind of again feeling fresh and just taking things, even just the fact that the cards start talking to you at the start of the game, I've not seen that before. I just felt it was a very good game for, it presents itself as this kind of card battler essentially, but even the fact that you can just walk away from the table and just start exploring the cabin that you're in, and there's like puzzles to solve around there, that was fresh. Like even just the elements like fighting the bosses, and then suddenly you're fighting the moon. I was like, what? So just constantly kind of coming up with new ways to keep me engaged with the game.
I think that's I'm just going to come back to my own experience with
it. Do it.
Which is great 3 or 4 times through. When you're on your 12th, 13th, 14th playthrough, it's like this is getting on my nerves now. Because it's that having to go through that sequence at the end where you take your photo. Because there's a bit where you have to grab the camera and you can grab it quite early. There's a where it's laying next to you. And you
but you can't. You've got no film.
You don't have the film.
You don't have the film because you got to release the cage. All this sounds very weird, doesn't it? You have to release the caged wolf.
Yeah.
To get the squirrel.
This is why you need to have played the game. Yeah. Because all this entire conversation is going to sound bananas.
And so there are some really good sequences, like the first time, because the way, just to sort of how this works out, you have scales next to the board.
Yeah.
And the way you do, if you attack. For those who don't know, if you attack empty squares on the board, because there's 8 squares basically, or 12 if you count there where they lay theirs, and if you attack an empty square, you do damage to them, and that basically drops teeth.
Like does Yu-Gi-Oh's do that? Where if you attack directly, it takes off points, doesn't it? That happens in Yu-Gi-Oh's, I think.
Yu-Gi-Oh, yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh.
Oh, what does that annoy you if I say Yu-Gi-Oh?
I don't know. I mean, whatever it is, it drops teeth. Yeah. It probably doesn't drop teeth. In
so you have a really cool diegetic UI basically. So it's like the scales.
Everything's in world.
Yeah.
So that is good.
All the UI is in game. So you have, instead of just health points, you have scales which you have little golden teeth that get dropped onto it.
But
sorry, you go.
Yeah, so I like the fact, so that's how you sort of play it. So you could, like you were saying earlier on about the sort of extra, your sort of bonus items which you can use. Now one of those is a pair of pliers.
Yeah.
And the first time I used that, because what happens is you basically, because you're in first person, these pair of pliers, you just get pick up, they just float towards your face really fast sort of thing, and just yank one of your teeth out. And it's like, that's really quite, I was like, oh, okay. But I thought, now that's cool. They say the fresh things. 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 12th. You're like, oh, just pull the tooth out. Okay, I'm not bothered anymore. I don't have any teeth left. But then you get the knife, and then the knife is another thing. So you get this knife by solving this little puzzle where you free the caged wolf, and then you get the wolf thing, and you put it on the statue with the squirrel, and then the squirrel releases the knife, and then you're allowed to use the knife in your games. And then if you get a knife, you can literally stab your eye out and put that on the scale, which is worth 5 teeth.
Yeah.
Who knew an eye was worth 5 teeth? So, this is kind of some currency I'm not aware of. I wonder how much other body parts are worth.
Yeah.
They kind of took the leg off, so that just weird.
In the prototype that they did, you could cut your hand off, but then it meant that you couldn't play any more cards.
Right.
So like
you have to save that for the end boss.
Basically.
Yeah. So then, if you pull your eye out at the end of the game, should you win that, which you probably will because you've got 5 power on the scales, you get offered a new eye from a box of eyes, which is kind of interesting. One of them's got a dual pupil, which I thought it's got 2 pupils sort of joined together.
Oh, okay.
Because I picked that one first. I went, oh, that's cool. Is that going to do something? It didn't do anything. I was like, oh. So then you have to find it.
Pick the glowing one?
No, because I picked the one with I thought this would allow me to see, I don't know, it's weird kind of stereoscopic vision weirdness.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Imagine if it just made 2 of the games stretched.
Who knew? It's that kind of game. Who knows what they're going to do?
Yeah.
So it didn't. So then you pick the one that's got this kind of little screen on, and that allows you to see extra stuff within the world, which allows you to solve the clock puzzle and things like that. So do those also as well? Do the weapons on the wall just to the left where you start? You can sort of
you can jiggle them about.
And one of them's got like when you've got the eye, it's got little sort of markings on it, like it's you can interact, but you can't. I never got to remove those.
Do you know?
I can't remember if I used them or not.
That's the other thing. There's so much in here. In this game, I feel like everyone playing it will have had a completely unique experience. They will have found certain things that other people haven't found. Or they'll and like even just us talking about the cards that we had and how we beat that kind of boss we all had totally different approaches to it.
That is a really, and don't get me wrong, that is a really good aspect. Those are the really good aspects of this game. I just think because I spent so long in that first section, it just, like I said, I would have liked if it had gone at some point. I think the game maybe should have done something like let the Wookiee win. It's just let it win. Just give him it. Just give it.
Here's a card.
Just get it. It's 6, 7. I want you, because it's almost like you could quite literally. I nearly gave up and didn't see the second and third act, which I think is a terrible thing to come at for a game. And I think, and there are games that, there are difficulties and things like this, but this wasn't difficult until it got to a point, and it taken me half an hour to get to that point. That was my issue. And I think at some point the game maybe could have recognised this and gone, and maybe it did. It went, just have the ants.
Maybe.
But I don't think it did, because I tried another one where it's like when you kill a squirrel, Or when you kill the one with this, so I had a squirrel, and it was like when this one dies, it spawns another one. So I had infinite squirrels.
Yeah.
So put a squirrel in, kill it, another one was born. Put the squirrel. So I was just lining them up. So again, it was attacking me, but couldn't do anything because it's just squirrels and there's squirrels everywhere.
Yeah, that's similar.
But again, that failed when he one-shotted me at the end. And I was like, oh, God's sake. So I don't know. Maybe there's something in there that would have just 6th or 7th time through. There could have been something where it recognises this and goes, look, I want you to get to the next part.
Yeah.
So like that bit with the camera, if that had been later after you got the film.
Yeah.
That would have, I think, allowed the game to progress. I don't know why they had to make you beat Leshy in the way that it did, because it was such a block.
Or if it is going to do that, at least kind of, it feels like the kind of game, it's so responsive in other ways.
Yeah.
That it doesn't recognise that it's got a block in.
Recognise that this player is struggling and, throw him a bone.
And adaptive difficulty levels, not, you get games like, going back to things like Resident Evil 4 and things like that, which have adaptive difficulty levels where it knows, if you need ammo, it knows to not throw as many enemies at you. It knows to do this depending on what you've got in your inventory. And so I think that, that's the kind of thing that this game maybe just could have done with, just to sort of like, right, yeah, you got through. I want you to see the rest of this game.
Yeah.
But maybe, I don't know. I spoke to a lot of people about it, and they were like, "Oh, I never had the problem." So maybe it's just me,
But you just got to get good, Adrian.
I know. I went back to play Dark Souls afterwards because that was easy.
I do want to talk about. We've kind of briefly skated around this, but. Basically kind of just VFX and atmosphere and general art direction.
Yeah.
David, this is more your bag. I don't know if you want to kind of lead the discussion on this.
I mean, one thing I did want to mention actually is that I don't know if you saw at the sort of end credits, but there's actually a lot of Creative Commons assets.
Yeah, I did notice that actually, and I thought that would be a good because obviously we teach game design, and sometimes our students might feel like using marketplace assets feels like cheating almost, but this is a game that's won awards, and it's a very critically acclaimed video game, and the credits is full of games from, what is it, Sketchfab?
I think for the most part Sketchfab. I think it kind of gives a good message that you don't necessarily need to be great at 3D modeling or
even
texturing
like really important items to the game, like the scales I think were on there and stuff. And it kind of shows that, like, you can go online, you can find these free assets and use them to make a really nice looking game with like great environments and atmosphere.
Because it's not about, and this is the thing, isn't it? It's not about just getting objects. It's what you do with them. It's the game you build around them. So obviously Daniel Mullins, isn't it? Daniel Mullins. It's Daniel Mullins, isn't it?
Daniel Mullins.
That's what he's black at the moment. So he's obviously quite, he's obviously got a clever design head on his shoulders, and he's good at programming. And that kind of notion of like trying to come up with this game is like, well, it's going to be like this. I just need assets to fill it. And there's a lot of sort of not just from SketchUp, but there's a lot of contributors as well. People who made the 3D models and stuff like that. I was interested. I don't know if I noticed that. I thought that one of the really good things about this game is the sound design as well. We'll come to sound in a minute, but just the art design stuff. Even though there are a lot of found assets, and I don't know what because it's a lot of them. It has a really, really good overall aesthetic continuity. Nothing feels out of place in the sections. Nothing.
Even though you're swapping between these like vastly different themes, it's still
and even obviously the first act you're in the cabin and it's all about the beasts and stuff. That's got a one aesthetic. Then later on you're in the robots version of the cabin where it's more like
factory kind
it's almost like factory, but there's like holographs and all this kind of stuff, but like when you beat the game it shows you what the other two Scribes worlds would have looked like. The
Wizards one, you have like a
Yu-Gi-Oh style,
what is it called?
Sorry, Yu-Gi-Oh style
you said it right there.
Battle,
a dual disc.
You have one of them and you're stood on these pillars, and then there's the other the ghost lady, and your cards are in the shape of gravestone, like everything. That was so cool, that end sequence. And just that dedication to kind of just visual cohesion between these different themes, and within each one it all just like fit together so nicely, from using the teeth to the just like the knives, or the fact that you're sacrificing things. It all kind of really neatly tied in together really well. And I think what I was impressed by, just like the little things, like even like the fact that if you've got cards with that flying ability where they can attack directly, hovering. They're like hovering and flapping on the board, or cards that later on, cards that detonate if they die, they've got like a little bomb fuse that's like going like so that you're aware of these things. Or if they've got a shield, there's like a little holographic shield over the top of them. Just like really cool little touches like that, like bits of polish. Just and again with the sound design as well. The sound design
in this game is excellent. The music is really good. The sort of the really thumpy sounds, like the gross sound when you actually are stabbing yourself in the eye. It's like it's like, oh, that sounds horrible. Or pulling your tooth out, and and the fact of like when you do pull your eye out, you like everything's blurred and you can only see.
You get the next eye.
It's little touches like that, or the. Just the interiors, but the sound of just it was pleasurable just to try the door, which wouldn't open because it had a nice sound. There's just good, all those kind of little things just all the way through it. And then
when Leshy speaks, the noise it makes whenever he spoke to you.
One thing I really like about Leshy is that every time you face one of the different bosses, so Leshy is kind of hiding in the shadows and you just see his eyes for the most part, but every time he a new boss comes up, he like either takes his mask off and replaces it with something, or like he rotates rotates it around.
And the way when he's speaking, his eyes go little sort of Dreamcast swirls. Things like that. I can't. So as much as like I struggled with some of it, the aesthetics, the visual design, the cohesion, the whole package itself is very well put together. The only letdown in all this for me, in terms of that, is I didn't like the actors. And I think we can't talk about this game without saying, because there's big chunks of this game. So one of the things about this game, and we sort of haven't mentioned yet, is that there's a whole sort of multimedia section. So there's this guy called the Card Master.
I'm the Lucky Carder.
The Lucky Carder. So it's basically it's like this YouTuber who opens card packs, and he's like, he's in front of a green screen and he's opening them, and he gets these, and he finds. So when you complete the first section, it cuts to this guy, and you have these videos to watch. And you're like, okay, this has gone a bit strange. Okay, let's have what's going on here. But then he finds the inscription packs.
Yeah.
He finds these physical inscription pack cards. Yeah. And one of them has coordinates on it.
GPS
coordinates. So he then goes out into the woods. This is all sort of filmed. It's almost like a sort of found footage type.
Film.
So it becomes like that. So then he goes out into the woods and he digs up this thing and he finds this disc, this inscription floppy disk, like 3¼ inch floppy disk, which he then buys. He buys a 3-inch quarter, but he goes a little video of buying it because he didn't have them, hooks it up, and then he plays it, and he suddenly finds that he's playing Inscryption, and that's where you've kind of come in on the game. So you're playing Luke. This is Luke, isn't it?
The point of the game is that you are playing as Luke playing the game. Because throughout you hear him talking at like certain sections.
In the last thing, he's like, "Woo, did that?" He sort of over talks. But then we get. So then he rings. So he finds out about this game, and then he starts to look into it, and he rings up this company who made it, and they're like, and then he emails them. No, he emails them, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And then he gets an email back going, you got to send us that back. You got to send it. You got to send it back. And then this woman turns up, and he's like, no, I don't know what you're on about. And then, do we spoil the full ending?
Yeah.
All right. So the full ending
happens.
So
spoilers.
he thinks that someone's in his house, and there's bits and bobs. And then after the final end of the game, an Inscryption basically deletes itself because you fight in this robot called P03 who wants to, through all these sections like you were saying about the fact that you reach a computer, he connects to the internet. What it's doing is he's actually uploading Inscryption into
Steam.
so it can become let loose on the world. And that's the whole point of this, so that these robots, because these scribes are real things. I think that's the whole point.
There's a much deeper layer to this that I won't go into because it's kind of stupid. There's basically this like evil code basically that is bringing
the Knoffel code,
and is bringing these characters to life. It's basically making them sentient.
So that's this sort of underlying story about this, and you kind of get part of that through it. So then at the end, he's on the phone with somebody and he has a knock at the door and it's that woman and she just shoots him in the head.
Yeah.
And then the last shot is, it's classic found footage nonsense.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And I've seen so many of these found footage films. It's just that, and the last shot is like the camera falls to the floor and then a pool of blood starts seeping out in front of it.
Yeah.
The woman walks off and you can hear the guy who's on the phone with Luke, are you okay? Well, Luke.
Yeah.
They just leave him there.
And it's just left there, and then the game just. I think that's just kind of it. Is that how it ends? That's the final bit, and then.
So
then it cuts to credits.
Basically, the proper ending of it is that the game does get uploaded in the end.
Yeah.
And then we're playing Inscryption.
Yes.
We're playing it through Steam. And they were successful. They uploaded it, and it's gone. All the way.
But I think the main issue I had with that is that. Although we've talked a lot, Sugar, about how good it looks, all the production values in the game, and everything like that, these ARG bits are not good. And
the acting isn't.
She's
great.
not believable in the slightest. It's essentially a mate.
Yeah.
Because she turns up with a ponytail and dark glasses on. She's like, "Hey, you've got that game." You're about 22.
I feel like most of it's excusable because it's kind of from the context of like this guy who is just doing YouTube videos. They're not very professional. And
but even bits which are meant to be like genuine, where he's on the phone. He's on the phone with the person he bought the cards from, and he's trying to find out about them. He's like, "Hello? Oh, your daughter died. Well, I'm sorry to hear that." And I get what Adrian's saying. But ultimately it's an indie game at the end of the day. It's using a lot of found assets. They can't afford to hire some.
But what I'm saying is that's what I'm saying. There's an incongruity between if you're going to go all out and design it, and we've said that this doesn't feel like an indie game when playing it.
Yeah,
it doesn't, because like we said, the coherence, the visual stylings of it works. And as a designer, that's one of the things to look at this from, is like how you can utilize a lot of found asset stuff and put your own original stamp on it. That's fine, but it stands, and I think it's still a product on its whole in and of its own self, so you have to judge it all.
Yes,
there are bits to it, and those bits do. And so if you're a designer thinking like, the game is only as good as all of it sometimes, and those bits I think pull it down. And so for a designer looking at it, I would say look at this going like, you may have done a great bit here, but that bit's rubbish.
When
you fix that bit
next time, hire some actors instead of getting your mates to play.
When you consider like all of the characters that you interact with in the game, they all just have like sound bits for their voice, which like works really well.
So it's like Banjo-Kazooie, kind of,
and they fit into the environment. But then you do have those sort of live action bits.
I don't know if that's part of the, like, after that first act, I honestly just put the game down. I didn't want to play anymore because I was like, this. I don't know if that's part of the reason what kind of spoiled it for me. But we should probably talk about the ARG stuff that is.
I couldn't tell you much about it.
I imagine you kind of completed the game. That was it.
Well, I finished it yesterday.
Well, for me, the only reason I know anything about it at all was because I was like, right, there's more to be said about this game. Looked at what the YouTubers are saying about it, and obviously MacPat's there with his 3-part game theory video that basically outlines the entire ARG stuff. But essentially, the section where you beat the first act, and then it looks like it's rebooting your PC.
Yeah.
If you type in as if you were trying to put in a command prompt, it actually allows you to do it. And there's certain prompts that you can put in, and you can try and access the old data, which is talked about throughout the game as this kind of, we must never look at the old data. It's going to uncover the dark secret of the whole game. But essentially, you need to input passwords to decrypt the file to allow you access to it. And there's 3 parts to this, and so there's like sections like. When you were talking about the assets, the asset list, one of those assets is fake. The URL takes you somewhere else. There's like things like that. There's bits like there's one of the bosses uses the Morse code plays during their music, and also there's a bit where the door to leave the cabin is flashing like white behind it. That's playing Morse code, but through visually. There's another bit where
there's loads of bits. Like I managed to find in a few bits, like in the top down section, Like, I went into this wooded area where there was like is it the witch or whatever? She's sitting on a tree stump.
Yeah,
I can't
right,
remember.
yeah.
If you walk up, you can actually go behind the trees, and there's like this picture of like a passport of one of the
Oh wow!
the people in the
I
story.
didn't get that at all.
Yeah.
But there's also in those the videos, the live action videos, he talks about he mentions the GPS location that he's going to, and so if you actually went there, because it was somewhere in Canada, was it?
Maybe, yeah.
Like it's near Vancouver or something.
Yeah.
Like 2 YouTubers actually went there, dug it up, and of course they came across an actual floppy disk with Inscryption. And so actually in real life had to buy a floppy disk reader from Amazon because they also didn't own one.
Or were they part of the ARG?
Which had a file on it which linked to, and there was another thing where there was so many different parts to it, which I feel like at the very end of it was a massive anticlimax. What they got out of basically you unlock different parts of this chat log through completing parts of this ARG, which talks about this basically the falafel
code,
the falafel code and the fact that apparently Hitler had a pack of these cards in him when he was shot and all that. I know it goes on and there's all this stuff and I just thought like ultimately the actual
the creative writer tutor is coming out in me. I'll be like, oh no, this sounds now. And
like you go to, there's one, the very last thing you get is like a YouTube link and it's a video of you actually preventing the game from being uploaded, because like that's one layer of the story is the game gets uploaded, we're all playing it, and then there's a video where but then EP03 like does a little winky face at the end or something, and it's like, well, or is it that kind of thing? So I just felt like it was all a bit
But I mean, I do, aside from like the story elements of that, I do like those kind of bits where it kind of forces the community to like come together.
And I like the idea of ARGs. I would never be bothered to do one, because what was the other game that did it?
There's been loads of them. There's FNAF.
Halo 2 is one of the first
FNAF.
ones.
Really?
Yeah, I love bees.
Bees.
You love bees? I mean, I like bees.
It's Halo 2 or Halo 3, I think it's one of the two. Yeah, they had a big ARG called I Love Bees, which was about people going to real life phone boxes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The idea of them is cool.
Yeah.
I would never participate in one ever.
I like to look at them afterwards and appreciate all the work that people have put into it, and you can be like, oh, that's pretty cool. I don't know what would go into sort of making all of those, because you got to like
effort,
host a lot of websites.
Having to bury a thing in the actual location.
You're understanding like ciphers and Morse code and like all this stuff. And like the
thing is though, you're looking at if you're looking at that from the point of view of trying to solve them. If you're setting them up, it's very easy.
Yeah,
because you have the code in front of you.
Yeah, so I mean, you still need a bit of knowledge of like how all that.
It's effort to put like.
It's effort.
It's effort.
It's effort. That's the thing, but it's not. It's not hard to create.
No.
Like, Morse code and stuff. Like, what's the Morse code for this? Right, just put that in. Just program that in. Right, if you need this code sort of thing, well, it's like, okay, well, I know I want to say, this is the message I want to say, here's the code, get a weird cipher, and there you go, that's done. It's not hard to put that. It's the hard part is solving it and making it all tie together.
And some of it was really obscure. Like, you had to play some of his older games.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
On his itch.io page.
To some of the old games where like...
Including the prototype for Inscryption.
Because Pony Island is kind of similar, isn't it? Where it's got like... It starts off as a sort of normal looking game, and then it slowly gets more corrupted and like...
Corrupt,
it sort of links into it like that, but... I mean,
I appreciate the effort. I appreciate all these things, but I have no time for them. My life's too busy to be wandering around trying to get a flight out to Vancouver.
Same.
Like, no. So I just take the game. I know I'm playing the game on the game's face value, and I think.
So you're saying if you buy a game on Steam, you're not going to fly out to a different country to complete it?
Literally no, not ever.
Well, it's a miracle he completed Act 1.
All goodwill has been gone. Absolutely. I mean, after about 2 or 3 rounds sort of thing, I had my flight booked, but then I just cancelled it.
Yeah, I'm not going to Vancouver.
But no, I do think there's a good game here.
Yes.
I think there's just got some issues issues that may have just been individual to me, and things like that. But I banged my head against it and I got through it, and I played through it. I just think
you persevered.
Some of those elements, I think the ARG, the real life stuff, the things they're a bit. I don't know. I've kind of seen that kind of thing before a lot.
I've heard your opinion on them before.
Fourth wall breaking things. They're kind of like, oh, okay. Sometimes I get.
I like all that stuff.
I don't mind it, but sometimes I find media like this is not quite as clever as it thinks it is, and that sort of rubs me the wrong way a little bit. But
Psychomantis reading your memory card was like the peak of fourth wall breaking.
Exactly.
Probably.
That's what I mean. It's just Kojima doing that stuff, and at the time that was new for
games.
But you can go back to things. I mean, I was trying to think today, what's the oldest one I could think of with like fourth wall breaking games sort of thing, and there were games like little computer people, like back in the 80s, where you had basically a little guy living in your computer, and if you had it on disk, it would save to disk, and he would live, and he could die because you had to send him food. He played his little piano and stuff like that. So there are those kind of things. They go way way back. So it's not something that's new, and like I said, ARGs have been done in loads of things before. There's that kind of multimedia, kind of delivery systems for a story, but when all it comes down to is some evil code, creating a code that's got when Hitler, you're like, oh,
Hitler had these cards on him, and
I think it depends on what angle you're coming from it, because like some people just, I don't know, they really like to solve these like puzzles. There's like it's like a true mystery. No one knows what the like solution to it is, and there's not a lot of. And
don't get me wrong, I think it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
But like Adrian, I've just stood off the time.
I completely agree with that. Like I'm not going to go and do all that.
But there is clearly there's an audience out there for it.
Yeah, exactly.
There always is. Internet sleuthing is a huge thing these days.
Yeah.
It's all real life crimes and stuff, don't they? People on the internet stuff. So that kind of, I see why you would want to try and tap into that, because also as well, okay, if we're talking about design things, and it's like if we talk, the actual the business side of games, then trying to get word of mouth about your game out there is so difficult these days. It's so hard that if you can do something that's different and that gets people talking, even if it's like, oh, you explain this, it's a bit weird, does this and that, then it generates that word of mouth. And as you said, it obviously works because it sold 1 million in 4 months. So it obviously did its job in all that kind of that stuff behind it, and I know how people are deep law, so much law.
I hate that word.
I'm not a big fan of it as well. So, but and I get it, and people are really into that stuff. And I mean, and let's face it, I've said it's a Souls-like game. You wouldn't have a lot of these games. I think are predicated on that. So I think the rise of the Souls-like genre and how the fact of like communities grew around them. I think that's where there's other ones like it, but I think that boom of the Souls-like stuff and the cottage industry of YouTubers and people like that, and 10 things you never saw in Dark Souls 2. It's like, okay, right, great. All this kind of stuff just blew up from all that, and these games sort of came.
Yeah, I mean, this game is just like it's a good example of inspiration. Can like if you use it correctly, you can make something new and interesting, and like the fact that it is basically based on the main sort of TCG like big card games, isn't it? Where you've got Yu-Gi-Oh, Hearthstone, and Magic. But it's done, I don't know, because like with AAA games, if you had it where they were directly copying, like, I don't know, a card game or something like that, or an existing game, people will be more critical of it. But I think because it's like a more of an indie game, there's more praise, and like
I think the game is strong. The game's story is stronger without the ARGs.
Yeah.
The game's story is fine within the game. Some of the deliveries are a bit wooden and like singing, but I do like that multimedia stuff, and I think what's encompassed in the game, what's in there in and of itself, I was fine with. I was like, oh, this is all right. Actually.
Even if it had just been, if the game had have ended after less shit, I would have still been pretty happy. I thought everything that, well, you'll have a different opinion there, but just the atmosphere and the like the weirdness around this cabin and stuff, like that was, I felt like that was enough for me. And then it blew up into 2 more acts. So it's completely different.
So I've no problem with the story in the game, and I think that's fine. Like I said, the live action bit, and
that was could have been
the girl coming and shooting him was like, oh god, okay. But the bit with the scribes, and the way P03 trying to take over and stuff, I was all right with. I thought this is fine.
Yeah.
And the 3 scribes, I like the fact they came together at the end to sort of delete it all. And
I felt a bit emotional actually.
Yeah. That was
especially when you're playing against Leshy again, and he's like, "Here, it's your deck that we started with. And let's just have a bit of fun." And then scales get deleted, and he's like, "Oh well, we don't need to keep score. Let's just keep playing."
Yeah, they slowly get deleted.
Yeah, I actually started feeling a bit
really
like
good with the sort of the bar going across the delete for assets and then shaking the hand and stuff. I actually really that was really
good,
really good. That was cool.
I can't believe you mentioned that.
But those sequences. So there are some really strong moments in this, and so I think that's where this game works best. I think it's the wider stuff maybe that I like to make me go ugh. And some of the maybe design decisions I think which could have been smoothed out just from my
Do you agree though that it's a game that designers should play?
I think so.
I think so. Particularly for all the main reasons we've mentioned, the maintaining freshness and the emergent gameplay factor, particularly for roguelike design. I felt like that. It did a lot of good and interesting things there.
The environment,
but I do agree that it maybe should recognise. Like I say, it reacts to players in so many ways that being able to detect, okay, it's the 14th time they're trying to get past the first act. Maybe we should, adjust some sliders.
Yeah. I'd argue that's another reason to play it, just so you can look at those aspects and think, how could I?
Well, I would have basically said as soon as you got to Leshy, you should have started there.
Oh yeah, once you've defeated a boss, you can start at the beginning.
Or even if you don't, those first 3 are not so hard to get through. So once you've got past the
prospector, then it's the
angler, and then the trapper. The trapper. So once you've got past the trapper, I think that's where it should have just gone right. Okay, well, so we know you can beat them. All right.
Well, so after each boss, you just.
Oh, not even after. I don't.
Just the very end.
I think just because you get.
Yeah, you keep the deck.
You probably
keep that same deck, and you have to try and beat Leshy with that deck.
Yes. Yeah. It only takes you 2 or 3 times to get through. I thought maybe 3 or 4 times to get through to Leshy the first time. So that's not an issue.
But also,
I think at that point could have been
just before you go through. It gives you 3 opportunities to improve it. Like if you just added those each time, just to make it.
Or they were permanent.
Yeah.
So that what you got there was a permanent addition to your thing to make you stronger each time.
So each time you got a permanent thing that would make sense actually.
The only issue is just the card limit, because when you're playing card games like that, once you get loads of cards, then it starts to become harder in some senses, because you'll have bad cards as well.
Yeah.
That kind of link in, so they would need something to counteract that. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
When I asked again for feedback from people about Inscryption.
Did you get any?
No.
Oh.
No. But I did want to highlight, because obviously I edit these and listen back to them, and we make japes about Adrian being the more mature member of the trio.
Someone say so.
No, but I was just listening back to the last episode, and there was things that you were doing, like you were reading your notes. You went, "Oh, I need my glasses," and then you were like, we were trying to figure out the name of the developer. You were like, "Oh, what was his name again? What was the name of that developer? What was he called? Oh, was he called this? Oh, what was he?" And I just thought it was really funny.
I've done it again this time because I forgot Daniel. Well, Daniel Mills. It's Daniel Mills, isn't it? Yeah. You had to check.
Yeah.
Pointing at David here, something like the youngster. He was like, and it's your game.
Oh, my memory's horrible. If you ask me a name, I'm not going to remember.
But I'd just like to say I've done this entire episode without any notes.
Yeah, that is true. I've got notes in front of me. I'm cheating and using a phone.
So I've done it all because it's so fresh in my mind.
Well, I mean, you did only just finish it yesterday.
Yeah.
Our verdict: it's a game every designer should play. I think.
Yeah.
For one reason or another. Yeah, there's good aspects, bad aspects. You should definitely have a look at it.
Great. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode, which means it's time to announce the game we'll be talking about in the next episode. It's my turn. So do you want to speculate?
Unless we veto it.
I've kind of already. I've given a few hints. So I've really struggled between choosing a game that I just want to talk about.
You are?
Half-Life?
Half-Life 2, yeah.
Portal 2.
Can you imagine?
No.
Just fun.
But yeah, I was like, do I choose a game that I just want to talk about that I think would be good to talk about, or do I choose like something that's a bit more obvious that would probably be on everyone's list of games that every designer should probably play?
Stanley Parable, The Witness.
Well, I don't think it's going to be another indie game. I think we've gone down that route a little bit. So
And that was the other thing as well. I didn't want to choose something that covered stuff we've already looked at. I didn't want to choose like another roguelike type thing, or something that was more like a card battle type thing, or another puzzle game, because we've already done some
I went
of
with
those.
a pretty unique one.
You did? No, I think that was a good choice.
Yeah.
It's a good choice.
Yeah.
I have no idea what you're going to pick, if I'm perfectly honest.
No.
There's too many options.
Yeah, there is too many
World of
options.
video
I mean, you've mentioned some ones that probably would have been on my list.
What, Oberdin, Batman?
Oh yeah, Oberdin and Stanley Parable and The Witness. I'd love to do an episode on these, and maybe we will at some point.
Maybe.
However, the game we'll be discussing on the next episode
Body
of
count.
No, it's not body count. The game, I'm not going to provide the context for that comment. The game we'll be discussing on the next episode of it, games every designer should play, is BioShock.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The
original.
I should have guessed.
Yes.
I actually haven't played the original.
Oh, really? What?
No.
You've not played BioShock what?
I've not actually played the original, so that's a good.
Well, there we
that's
go.
a good excuse to finally play that.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I could probably do it now.
Yeah. Well,
I
this
played
is
that
it.
game a lot. So-
Yeah.
You play through multiple times, or just okay.
It's one I sometimes will play in one of my lectures to demonstrate elements of level design and other such things.
I played the opening sections of that game about so many times.
Yes, but an excuse to try and beat it again, get through the end sections maybe. But I do think there's plenty to learn from it.
Yeah.
And I think if you were to make a list of games every designer should play, BioShock's probably one that a lot of people would agree would be on there.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's It's kind of sits in the middle of the your Deus Exes, your sort of immersive sims.
Yeah.
So it sits in the time, both in the timeline and what it does as well. Kind of, because obviously you had Deus Ex, Thief, System Shock earlier than this.
Yeah.
And then you had BioShock, which kind of brought those games out of. But we'll talk about this. And
Yeah.
led to all your praise and.
I haven't played any of those other games, so it would be good to hear your perspective on maybe how BioShock evolved the genre, whether it did or not.
And then obviously there's the two sequels.
And we're getting is there another
there
one?
There is another one in development at the moment. Yeah, there's a BioShock. It's been in development for a while. Yeah, there's also another one coming. There's another sort of one that looks very similar to it as well, which is coming soon.
Anyway, you can play along. Email us your comments and questions on BioShock to shouldplaypodcast@gmail.com with the subject BioShock. Or even if you've just got general feedback on the podcast, we'd just love to hear from you. If you've just got questions, if you want to ask David why he goes hello, it's David at the beginning of every episode, or ask Adrian what he meant by the body count comment, then
I couldn't possibly say.
Call in. Don't call us, email us, or just reply to one of our various social media posts.
Make fun of our card game skills.
Make fun of Adrian's card game skills, yeah.
To be fair, I'm not a card game player.
Oh, you love Marvel Snap.
That's
you love a bit of Marvel
part of the reason I chose this game.
Marvel Snap is pretty much the only one I played. I've had a couple of looks at other ones, but Marvel Snap is it.
Because you guys talked about it so much, I was like, you know what? Another card game.
I keep falling out with Marvel Snap. I've got to 95 and I'm falling out with it again.
It's an abusive relationship.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's very much love hate.
I won't play it.
You what?
I won't play it.
You won't play it? Well, just you wait until one of us chooses it for this podcast.
Veto. I'm going to veto it.
Well, because me and Adrian will both vote for it to be talked about.
Audience, please help veto.
It'd be impossible to play because there's no end.
No, you can, but you can play it. You can still play it. It doesn't have to end.
We've said before you don't have to Oh wait, why am I saying this? I don't want to play it.
Yeah, okay. David's made the case that we should play Marbles at some point.
I don't think we should do Marbles.
Yeah, no.
Right. So, if you're passionate about game design and like the podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like it, leave us a nice review, share on social media, tell your friends about us. We want more listens. Connect with us on various social media platforms. There's a YouTube channel.
There is.
And we've got
all 12 and a half hours of me failing against
we really should start recording.
It's just like the Patreon version. You can see all the names that you put on the cards.
They were dreadful. They were really bad.
I must have beat it on the 5th go because I think I had 4.
I ran out of rude words.
And
horrible things. I was just like I was such a child. I was so angry. I was like
yeah. Well, I think you should create an ARG that allows people to solve what the cards' names were. That would be good. But yeah, join the conversation and maybe suggest games you'd like us to chat about in future episodes. Yeah. But all that's left for us to say now is thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.